Das, 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 das. Das, das.
You,
Good.
I mean, I
Fast.
know At this is committee meeting for Tuesday, April 26, 2022. It's a little after 6. Didn't know if the mayor was going to come, so then we are now open. Roll call, please.
Alderman Sherry Pickering.
Here.
Ethan Burt.
Present.
Eve Ludwig.
Present.
Tricia Teague.
Present.
Robert Williams.
Present.
Darren York.
Present.
Chairman Rick Streebing.
Here.
7 present.
Present, thank you. Puts us to item number 2, approval of the minutes for 3/22/22. Make the motion to move and dispense with the reading and ask for your approval. In a second, please.
Second.
Any questions? Any changes on the minutes? If not, roll call, please. No, I'm sorry. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Puts us item number 3, approval of the agenda. I don't think there's any changes for this evening, so I'll need a motion and a second to approve.
So move. Second.
Any questions on the agenda? If not, approval of the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 4, audience comments.
Haven't received any cards. Anyone wish to speak?
Anybody wish to speak? All right. Thank you. 5, chairman's comments. Don't have much to say neither, so we'll go right into the approval of payrolls. For 4/22/22, make the motion to approve and dispense with the reading and ask for approval. Need a second, please.
Second.
Any questions on approval of payrolls? If not, roll call, please.
Alderman Teague.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
York.
Yes.
Pickering.
Yes.
Burt.
Yes.
Ludwig.
Yes.
Streebing.
Yes.
7 yes.
7 yes, thank you. Puts us to item number 7, approval of vouchers payable. Looks like we had a special run for 4/19/22, special run for 4/20/22, and 4/26/22. Make the motion to approve and dispense with the reading and ask for your approval. I'll need a second, please.
Second.
Is there any questions on the vouchers payables in front of you this evening? If not, roll call, please.
Alderman Williams.
Yes.
York.
Yes.
Pickering.
Yes.
Burt.
Yes.
Ludwig.
Yes.
Teague.
Yes.
Streebing.
Yes.
7 yes.
7 yes, thank you. Puts us to item number 8, city clerk's report. Ms. Munson, items of information for us.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to remind everyone the Statement of Economic Interest forms are due May 1st in the Vermilion County Clerk's office. So if you haven't submitted that yet, you probably ought to get that done this week. And I wanted to announce that unfortunately, the Deputy City Clerk has, well, for Ashland, that's a good thing, has transferred to the Finance Division. So the mayor and I have been interviewing for the Deputy City Clerk position this week. So we hope to have a decision made by the end of this week.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Anybody got any questions for Ms. Munson? Thank you. Puts us 9, finance. 9A is a resolution authorizing changes in auditing services fees for FY 2021 and 2022. I'll make the motion to approve and dispense with the reading and ask for your approval. Need a second, please.
Second.
Is there any questions on the resolution? If not, roll call, please.
Alderman York.
Yes.
Pickering.
Yes.
Burt.
Yes.
Ludwig.
Yes.
Teague.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Streebing.
Yes.
7 yes.
Yes, thank you. Which gives us to Miss Ashton Macy, the comptroller. Item of information. I guess we'll go on the personal monthly report or risk management.
Both the personnel and risk management reports are attached. If you have any questions, I can take those now before I go into other updates. Okay. Well, we have a new hire in our office. We're happy to welcome Megan Mudd. She's taken the position of accounts payable administrator. We're thankful for her previous experience with the city, so she can hit the ground running on a lot of different things. It is end of fiscal year this coming Saturday, but of course the last business day is Friday, April 29th. So we're very busy in our office. It's like a little beehive, getting a lot done, wrapping up the end of the fiscal year. So those are the 2 big items. I'll take any questions you guys have.
Will you have anything for us at the next council meeting for cleanups or anything else in different areas?
What do you mean by cleanups?
You mean adjustments? for the-
Adjustments to different schedules and stuff, line items.
Oh, like budget amendments for the
Yeah.
end of the year?
Yeah.
We shouldn't.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. That puts us to anybody got any questions for her? If not, then we'll move right on to number 10. The fire department with Don McMasters, the fire chief, items of information, and monthly fire report, which he's passed out to everybody. Chief?
Okay, you have in front of you our monthly fire incident summary report. As you see, it looks a little different than what you're used to. We have our new reporting system that we're in the process of putting together, and we are getting trained on how to create reports in June. So we winged it today and come up with just a basic report to give you the general basics. So I'm learning as I go with this report just as well as you are staring at it. Top of the first page, underneath the first line under general information, you see we had 17 fire calls, 222 EMS calls, and 1 unknown for a total of 374 calls for the month. If you flip to page number 2, the top underneath the line is building fires. We had 5 building fires for the month of March. And if you go to call number or page number 3, it gives you the dollar figures of the dollar losses that go with the said with any dollar loss of any kind of call we had over the course of the month. So we had about $71,000 worth of losses over the course of the month of March as part of our damage due to fires. As you see on there, some of them were cooking fires, you can find a container, basically somebody burnt food on the stove, essentially is what those are, as well as the 111s, which are building fires. Also a trash rubbish fire you see that had a significant amount of damage to it. This is a new report. We're learning as we go with this. We will actually create a better report that's a little easier to read, a little more cut and dry with the information you want over the next month or two. You may see a report like this for the next couple months until we figure it all out.
Do you have any questions on this?
This month so far, we've been busy. We've had several fires already this month as well. Several of them, we've had 2 fires in the last month and a half that have resulted in injuries to personnel. Fire back in March, one of these fires back in March, we had a personnel that fell through the floor to a basement and was injured because of that. He is still off on light duty. He's expected at least 2 more weeks worth of therapy before he comes back to work. Then the 13th, so 2 weeks ago, we had another incident where a ceiling come down on multiple firefighters while they were in the house. One of those was semi-significant injury. He was off for 5 days. He is back to work, and as luck would have it, he's like 2 shifts from retirement. If he'd have just not went to that fire that day, he'd have worked about 4 more shifts and he'd have been done and retired, and he wouldn't have gotten himself hurt. But he was not. He was potentially significant hurt, but they gave him 5 days off and gave him some medicine for the pain and sent him back to work. So he is back to work now. That's it on the monthly report. Any questions on it?
You want to talk a little bit about the status of what I asked for on the fire trucks?
Yes. You also have a report in front of you. And again, I'm sorry you didn't get it ahead of time. I slapped this together this afternoon. This is a little bit of just a quick synopsis of the status of our two aerial ladders. The top one is our truck, what we call truck 2. Which is our backup. This is our reserve ladder that we only put in service if we absolutely need to now. So that would actually, if we were to purchase a new apparatus, that one would go away. It's a 1999 Pierce. It's a 75-foot ladder. It does not have a basket on it. It's just a straight stick ladder with no basket on the end of it. So when you're working on it, it's just for single individual at the top of the ladder to be working on it. It doesn't have a basket for multiple people. That truck was purchased as an emergency purchase back in 1999 when we needed an aerial truck, and we needed one now. And so it was made as an emergency purchase to get us an aerial truck. And then once the new truck one came in 3 years later, then that truck was put into status as a fire engine, as a working engine company. So it was put in service as a unit that went to all calls during the day, not just to big fires. It went to medical calls, it went to illegal burning calls, it went to everything. So as you see, it's got a significant amount of things on it. The hour meter on it only shows 2,458 hours. With these types of vehicles, hours on the motor are more considerably more significant than the mileage. But the meter only shows 2,458 hours on it because quite some time ago, back in, I want to say like 2006 or 2007, they had to put a whole new computer system in this rig. So when they did that, that reset the hour meter and the mileage meter, and the maintenance people do not keep track of them when they're doing service on the vehicles. They don't keep track of the hours and the hour meter. So they couldn't give me a figure as to what I needed to add to the hours to get you a realistic hours on it. But the mileage, as you see, they did track the mileage. It had 24,000 miles on it before it got the computer replaced, and it's had 69,000 put on it since then. So it's got a total of 94,000 miles on the entire chassis of the vehicle. You see below that the repair costs since 2006, because that's as far back as their current computers records go, is about $138,000 and change have been. That is just materials alone of maintenance work that's been done to it. They do not track the man hours that they spend when they're doing the work on the trucks. That's just material costs. Current issues with that vehicle, it's starting to show a lot of underbody and framework corrosion. The aluminum bodies, the bodies of them where all your compartmentation and stuff is, all that is aluminum, so it doesn't rust, but it does start showing, it starts getting stress cracks from all the tweaking and moving and driving down the road and the potholes in Danville and so forth. The wiring harness, the entire wiring system for the vehicle is starting to deteriorate. So they're all the time having electrical issues, and they have to track down and they find a wire that's loose or a wire that's frayed in two, and they're repairing them. And as this stance with both of these rigs, parts for repair of both these rigs are starting to get obsolete. It's getting harder and harder to find them. Some of your parts, some of your things like turbos for the motor, that's a Cummins motor, things like that, they can still get those types of parts because Cummins is going to be around for years and years. But anything that's proprietary to Pierce, the parts are getting harder and harder to find. Truck one, which is our current in-service truck, that is a 2002 100-foot basket. That actually is a 100-foot ladder with a basket on the end of it. And again, that's what we use most of the time. It's in service all the time, unless for maintenance reasons it has to be down. We are consistently having to pull it for maintenance reasons. For instance, 2 or 3 fires ago, the outriggers, which is the pieces that come out of the side of the vehicle and is parked down on the ground to make the vehicle stabilize so you can put the ladder up, malfunctioned and could not be put down. So then if the outriggers can't be used, then you can't use the ladder. So for all intents and purposes, that particular day, the ladder was, we didn't have a ladder. So of course we sent it to maintenance the next day. They find the problem, they fix it, and it's back in service. But at the time we needed it, we didn't have it. This truck is the same way. When this was refurbished back in 2017, they replaced they zeroed out the hour meter and the mileage. We did not have the hours prior to 2017. So the 1,641 hours you see is just since it was refurbished in 2017. And then the mileage you see, it's got a little over 80,000 miles on it. The repair costs to date on this truck, including the refurbishment since 2007, is a little over $508,000. And as you see also, basically the same types of issues are having with it. There's only 3 years difference between these vehicles, and they're both the same manufacturer, so the issues on them are all the same. This one, I kind of have to chuckle about it. And I laugh because it's not funny. I just laugh because the individual that was involved in setting up the plan to refurbish this vehicle in 2017, when they refurbished it, due to didn't know any better or whatever be the reason, they completely refurbished this vehicle. They took everything off the frame. They sandblasted the frame and the torque box for the aerial device and all that stuff. They recoated it, repowder coated it and everything else, and then put the 17 or 18-year-old wiring harness back on it. So since it's been back and since 2017, we're constantly replacing pieces of wiring on it because they just put the old wiring harness back on it. My guess is that probably would have been an extra $15,000 or $20,000 when they refurbished it to just replace the wiring harness, and that probably would be an issue, but they didn't. The other thing that was not done at the time of that is the command center, which is the communications between the basket and the turntable. The turntable is the part at the bottom where somebody stands and looks up at them all the time and controls everything if necessary to control it. And then you have the guys up in the basket that have controls to everything too. But if something would happen up there where either the controls go bad or something happens to them guys where they can't work the controls, the guy down at the turntable still has control of everything. He can bring them down, get them to safety. And there's a command, what we call a command center, which is a computer screen with all the data of the truck on it that communicates everything between those two places. That command center is I want to call wore out, destroyed up in the basket from all the wear and tear from all the years that you can't even read anything on the screen anymore. And they cannot just replace that screen or that computer for us because it doesn't exist anymore. They have to completely replace the entire command center with all the wiring from A to B and everything that goes with it. Last estimate when we discussed that last time, and of course we know how prices go up, was somewhere between $15,000 and $18,000 to get that replaced. And of course, that would still, even if this truck is going to be put into reserve status, which would be the likely location for it. If we bought a new truck, we would get rid of the 1999 and put this one in reserve status. We would still potentially need to get that command center replaced.
Chief, is this one of the Pierce that they had to pay to refurbish, or was that another truck?
This was the 2002, the truck one, the one at the bottom was the one that we paid to have refurbished in 2006. We got it approved and sent it off in 2016, and it was gone almost a year to the day and came back just shy of Christmas 2017.
But I remember what the manufacturer, because of issues, had to pay to have one of them repaired. Was that this, or was it one of our engines?
No, it was actually two of our engines. Engine 2 and Engine 4, both, we had to have new frames put underneath of them. And the manufacturers paid a big chunk of that bill, but we paid significantly on that as well because we had other things we had them take care of while they were doing it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was the two engine companies. This truck did not get that done.
Any questions for the chief?
My one question is, how long ago was the quote given for the command center?
That was kind of a word of mouth quote that our mechanic talked to one of their techs about. Probably it was before COVID, so it's been 2.5, 3 years probably.
Okay, that's my only question. Thank you.
Any other questions for the chief?
Yeah, Chief, is there a market for those used trucks like that when you take them out of service? What do we do with them?
Yeah, there is. An aerial is not as hot of a commodity around here because most of the departments in the general vicinity of us are volunteer departments with very limited budgets and very small fire stations, so they wouldn't have the room for it. However, there are a couple of volunteer departments in the vicinity that have in the past or do currently own aerials, and it always seems so our smaller aerial, you might have an entity around here that may be interested in it. Now, realistically, their value compared to replacing it now is pennies on the dollar, and I mean pennies on the dollar. But there is a potential market for it. It's been kept up as far as its certifications. It gets recertified every year as far as the ladder and the pumps both get recertified every year. So other than the maintenance issues, your smaller volunteer departments, if they have room for it and the money to pay for it, would love to have it.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Anybody else got a question? Thank you very much. Puts us number 11, Human Relations. Ms. Finch, items of information, the monthly status report.
I'll be happy to answer any questions. Miss Finch is on vacation this week.
Any questions? All right, we'll move to item number 12. Information Technology, Agno Sylvia, Administrator. Number one, we have a resolution authorizing a budget amendment to fiscal year 2022 and 2023 information technology line number 20 in the budget. Make the motion to approve and dispense with the reading and ask for your approval. Need a second, please.
Second.
Any questions for Agnell on this? If not, roll call, please.
Vice Chairman Pickering,
Yes.
Alderman Byrd,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Streebing,
Yes.
7 yes.
7 yes, thank you. Puts us to item 12B, items of information. Agnell?
Thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to mention one more item. I've been working with Verizon to convert our parts lines over, and they gave us a solution which I think will work well for us, and it's also going to save us some money down the road. So unfortunately, we have a contract with AT&T which expires January of next year. So there's really no point in canceling. I mean, even if we cancel the contract, we still have to pay the monthly cost. So I'll bring it to the public services sometime in October, end of October. That way that'll give us an additional time, and then will be an easy transition to the LTE. So we'll be getting rid of all the AT&T lines at that point.
Okay, well, thank you, Agnell.
No problem. And just trying to assist all the divisions and to meet all their technology needs. And that's all I got.
Well, you've been keeping busy, I can tell you.
We love it though. We just we
Yeah.
like challenges. So
Well, thank you for all you do.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Any questions for Agnell, anybody? Yes.
In regards to cybersecurity,
Mhm.
can you give us an update as how we're standing on that?
Sure. Back in, I believe, 2019, after we did the presentation stuff, we put together a good sustainable program, cybersecurity program. And I really like to thank every council members for your support, because it's working great and it's measurable. And we have seen some significant improvement in our security posture. And the more we look into it, I'm trying to find areas as to, cybersecurity is it's like you can spend all kinds of money you want, but it doesn't solve the problem. We need to figure out what solves the problem, right? So our biggest thing was training the employees. That comes first. So we have done really good on that. We are in that green. If you remember, I think maybe a couple months ago, I sent a report on the progress, where we are at, but we're still in the green. That's where we want to stay. So we're still finding other solutions. This attack surface changes almost every day, and you hear that on the news. So we're trying to look into different solutions, trying to have multiple layers of security. You just can't have one solution that does everything, right? So I think my recommendation would be to diversify the products. And, if one solution doesn't detect the threats, we have another solution that can. So they work together trying to figure out, how we can best detect. Anymore, you have to assume that the adversaries are already on your systems. That's the best way to deal with threats. So we're trying to detect incidents, prevent them from happening. So we've changed the whole way how we do the cybersecurity here. And so far, it's been working great. So thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions for Agnell? Agnell, thank you very much.
No problem.
What's his number 13, legal? James L. Simon of Corporation Counsel. Items of information for us tonight.
Just a couple of pieces of information for those who haven't heard the news. Amanda Bank, our Assistant Corporation Counsel, has taken a job with the State's Attorney's Office. She will start next week. Her last day was this past Thursday. Also, as a reminder, you all voted to approve our resolution. On May 1, we will no longer be handling village city court cases or small claims cases. Staff, though, is still staying quite busy handling our own cases. And we are also in the process of accepting applications for her position, and the position will remain open until it is filled.
Is there any questions for corporate counsel? Thank you, Mr. Simon.
Thank you.
Puts us number 14. 14A, a resolution authorizing the purchase of police vehicles and disposal of unused police vehicles. Make the motion to approve and dispense with the reading and ask for your approval. Need a second, please.
Second.
Any questions on the resolution? If not, roll call, please.
Alderman Burt,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Pickering,
Yes.
Strebe.
Yes.
7 yes.
7 yes, the motion carries. Puts us to 14B, items of information. You've got the, under B, you got item number 1, March offense data, and B2 is year-to-date offense data. Chief?
Yeah, I had in the,
Can you lower your mark, Chief?
yeah, sure.
Thanks.
You got year to date as well as the month of March. You can take a look at the March offense, but it doesn't really tell you anything unless you compare it with others, more of a longer term. But we're looking at the first quarter results from 2020, 21, and 22, I believe, is what you were given. Not the UCR. We'll go over that here in a little bit. But essentially, we went down in every category from 2020 except for one, which was battery, and we were close or below all but 6 out of those, I think 13 total, 12 or 13 total. Where you saw a big number on the March on the other burglaries. We had a group of young kids going into cars and getting change, and that's actually listed as a burglary to auto statutorily. So that jumped the numbers up a little bit. But we're also considering these are NIBRS numbers compared to UCR. And I also gave a handout explaining what the difference of UCR versus NIBRS or vice versa. NIBRS is the National Incident Reporting Base System or Base Reporting System. And it's quite a bit different than the UCR. I've had different issues with UCR just based on it's not real indicative of the crime within a community. Find my paper here. Well, that stapled handout I gave you, there are some factors to consider when referencing uniform crime report. For overall crime rate, incidents of crime per 100,000, all crime indices have the same value. Okay, meaning essentially that you look at all the numbers across, unless you're specifically separating indices violent, non-violent, but your uniform crime report measures 10 different primary indices and then 20 arrest only indices. So a homicide and a theft essentially on your overall crime rate numbers have the same value. Okay. That was one issue that not only, I mean, law enforcement, but also the officials and FBI that do the data analysis. Number of incidents does not indicate the number of victims. Several incidents may involve the same victim. Okay, that was another issue that we had with UCR. Methods of reporting is different from agency to agency. A lot of it's controlled by, policy, whether or not they have online reporting, what type of, police community relationship. We also have to look at decriminalization. When I talk about decriminalization, that can be as minor as someone getting an ordinance violation because they feel like it holds the people more accountable to some of the lower crimes within theft versus state charges. Or it could be simply they're just not prosecuting in different areas, in different geographical areas. We see some different reports. You can look on the news where police aren't even responding to certain crimes that are misdemeanors. We do. Okay. And we report those very thoroughly because we don't know where to improve unless we have accurate, good numbers. Police community relationship, I mentioned that a little bit before. When that relationship suffers, you also have less reporting. Okay. Poor, inconsistent records management and human error. You know, we've seen that in, sometimes locally, but, I don't believe in bringing up other communities, but I'll give you an example later on, and it's a fictitious example, but, and it's very exaggerated. However, it does sort of show a point what I'm talking about, values per incident and how the indices line up with values. But there are some communities that I've seen, really, there's no crime other than vehicle theft and homicides. No one steals, no one batters. They either steal a car or murder somebody. Okay. And that's faulty reporting and records management. Okay. Because that's just not how the world spins. And if you ever look and really study UCR in all the cities, you can sort of find those on your own. Some cities don't report at all. Okay. That's a concern. I'm not concerned about those other cities. I'm concerned about city of Danville. That's where I'm the chief at. And that's why it's so important where when we get accurate information, we have to process it accurately and consistently accurately. That way we can determine what's successful and what's not. Also, just the community perception and futility of reporting sometimes. If you have a community that believes it, why call the police? Nothing's going to happen. They're not going to call the police, and crimes go unreported, and victimization goes up, and predators are safer. Okay, that's another thing that we don't believe in here in Danville. We put predators on notice, and anybody that wants to create a victim. So, what the UCR did was it used a very traditional, what they called SRS, or summary reporting system. FBI identified many problems with it. So then they came to this NIBRS system, which is the National Incident-Based Reporting System. Now, what that's going to do is that's going to grab 52 different indices. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me okay? 52 different indices and 10 additional ones that are arrest only, to where the, compared to the UCR is 10 indices and 20 arrest-based indices. Okay, so what the NIBRS system is going to do is more accurately show a community what their actual crime and challenges are. And then you let the law enforcement agencies compile that data, and then they determine what's, one, not acceptable to that community, what's criminal, obviously, and how we're going to deal with it. And also, how do we measure success and failure, or success and idle? Idle to me is failure. Where do we need to retool and get better at? And if you look, a lot of our numbers, we've been based off NIBRS since 2021, but a lot of our UCR reporting, I suspect, followed some of the principles of NIBRS prior to NIBRS. Because UCR only takes the most, if you have a report where there's 4 or 5 different offenses, someone kicks in a door, okay, that's criminal damage. They enter the residence, that's trespass. They punch a person inside, that's home invasion and aggravated and battery, okay? UCR takes the most serious offense and eliminates the others, okay? Which I can understand why. But if you look also on that, I believe it's the second page in that handout, you can barely see it, but there's a website there. 10 states within the United States, as of, I believe, 2020 or 2021, had gone to NIBRS system only. 10 states, 20, and then 20 states went to NIBRS UCR. 10 states went to, and this is their figures, and I'll tell you why it's theirs, not mine. 10 states after that, I think one of those numbers are wrong, either the 2020 or the 10. They used UCR only, okay, or SRS. One state used none, okay? They have no records management system as far as crime reporting. And that's also on there. It's indicated as a clear. I'm sorry, it's not color. The odd thing is that's 51 states. Okay. So there's an error there somewhere with those, but this sort of gives you an idea. So when we're looking at comparing, our city compared to other cities, first, you have to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges. And once everybody switches over, which is the direction that the FBI is wanting to do, first of all, what it's going to do is create a new baseline for crime and crime rates. It's going to establish a new baseline, and it's sort of hard, especially if you have an automated records management system like we do, to have inaccurate information, hopefully. And I don't know how many departments have that. But like I said, I mean, I'm more caught up in the fact that what we're doing in Danville and how we're making the quality of life better and minimizing the number of victims. But I think as far as a city and a council and city leadership, we also have to look at those comparisons when we bring people into our community or to invest in our community. That's well beyond my scope, but I am conscious of it.
Chief. All right.
Okay.
So I've given you all a handout. A lot of you have probably seen that article going around town that says, around the internet, that says Danville is the 6th most dangerous place in the country. If you look at the side that doesn't have the chart, it also claims that we are the 2nd most dangerous in the Midwest and the most dangerous in Illinois. However, the problem is their reporting is fallacious in many different ways. If you turn over to the side with the chart, the way that they assess crime is by metropolitan area. So for us, we had to take the entire county as a whole. In the article, for example, they said that we had 785 violent crimes in the city of Danville in 2020, whereas we actually only had 388 violent crimes. They said that our violent crime rates went up by 12.3%. However, they actually went down by 33%. They said that our violent crime rate in 2020 was 1,050. Actually, it was 566 when you use the accurate numbers. They said that we had 13 homicides. However, we only had 8. And they also said that our homicide rate was 17.4 when it was only 11.7. This is the kicker to me, the fact that they couldn't even get our poverty rate correct. It's right there on the census data. They said that our poverty rate was 16.5% when in fact it was 16.8%. So I just want to make sure that the community and the media are aware that in fact this article that you see so many sharing is laced with false information. And that makes me wonder how many of the other cities that they've done are also inaccurate too. So I just want to remind the community to be careful what you share and make sure you assess sources before you share it, because a lot of times what you're going to find are unfortunately clickbait. People want to trash Danville, and we're certainly not where we want to be ideally, but we've absolutely made a lot of progress. And I wanted to make sure that we get the truth out to the community. And I also wanted to make sure that Chief had an opportunity to share with you some of our specific numbers. So before we move on to the remainder of Chief's presentation, does anyone have any questions for me on this information?
Mayor, I don't have a question directly to what you're talking about, but I have one for the chief. For your local reports, it's kind of indirect of what we're talking about here, but what system do you have transcribers to transcribe your reports, or do the officers do their own reports by computer, or what system are we using now?
We previously had transcribers, but about 8 to 10, maybe even longer ago, it's gone back to the officers typing their own reports, but they can do those in their car. So often when you see a car that's parked in a parking lot, they're knocking out a report in their car, going on to the next call.
Okay, thank you.
Also, what I wanted to do was show the index crime comparison from 2018 to 2021. Now, this was a little difficult to do, and as a disclaimer, I'm going to let you know that we used a lot of the NIBRS process to use it on the indices to try to match apples to apples, but we're still sort of apples to tangerines here. Okay. It's still not. But the thing is that's fortunate, because I'd like to see what happens when we get this new baseline, is that we noticed that there was not an increase, a significant increase anywhere. And for the most part, we had a lot of decreases in our crime rate overall if we were to report NIBRs on a UCR scale. Okay. And that's good news, but it's also incomplete. None of the information that I give out, or none of the information I've gathered, has got me at a point where I'm satisfied. And I said earlier today to another group, I believe, if someone was to ask me, when will you be satisfied? I think it's whenever the community lets me know very clearly, this is the way we want it to be, and we're happy with this. But I'll be honest, dealing with victims' families, one homicide's too much. One homicide's too much. One domestic battery is too much. I have to be realistic. I know things are going to happen. We're dealing with human beings, but we have to, I think it's one of those things that we just continue pushing, continue figuring out what's working, and double down, like I've said before, on everything that we see success, and retool everything that's either idle or less than satisfactory to us and our community. So when using that and that disclaimer, this is what we've seen over the last, since 2018. It made it very clear to me whenever I was, hey, I worked the street for 20 some years before I came to this position. I felt the pulse of our community very closely, close relationship. And when we looked at a lot of these things, what was being asked of me was, we have to get a handle on the violent crime, the shootings. Okay. We went from around 60 people shot in 2018 or 19. I believe we had 37 last year, like somewhere around there. And one person was shot twice. So whatever that was, -1, same victim. Okay, but that's, and the murder rate, the murders are better than where they were before, but we're not satisfied with it. And sometimes you have to be realistic. It wasn't for the lack of trying. If there's 37 people shot, that's a problem. All right. And also we have to look at these numbers that we've also taken a decrease when most communities across not just the state of Illinois, our size and bigger, but across the nation has seen a incredible increase in crime rate. So I think this is something that we need to be proud as a community. Criminal homicide from 2018, 25% decrease. We had a 30% increase in sexual assaults. That's where we're coupled with a lot of the social services trying to figure out, was this an anomaly? But we had a lot of reports in 21. Robbery, 70% decrease, almost 71. Ag assault and ag battery, 45% decrease. Now, the reason why we put ag assault and ag battery is because this federal definition of ag assault is what our state statute of battery is. Okay. In Illinois, assault is a mere threat. An aggravated assault is a threat while in the possession of a weapon. So we combine those. Burglary, down 28.2%. Theft, up 5.4. Now, this is a very important number, and I want you to remember that's such a high number, and it can really throw things off with UCR. Okay, remember, we got 1,194, but it's only a 5.4% increase. 2020, a lot of things were closed down. Maybe that's why that number is low. I like to get much lower than that going forward. Motor vehicle theft, we had 90. If you remember, we all brought together the vote on the public nuisance tow. Okay. It's amazing how fast a car gets reported stolen after someone gets pulled over and it gets towed for public nuisance tow. Empirical data, I don't have it with me, but I'd say fewer than 10 are even remotely legitimate stolen vehicles. And arson, we had a 46.7% decrease, but those are low numbers. The sexual, human trafficking, commercial sex acts, no reports of that. Human trafficking and voluntary servitude, same. Okay, so we have seen overall a decrease in major incidents, but our overall incidence of 1885 is high because of what? 1194. Okay. And then we're going into, now let's look at the last 2 years with NIBRS. I won't go too far in that, but those are the 13 or the 12 that we identified that are very important to us in the community and the quality of life. And those are using NIBRS numbers, right? So we're at, we saw a slight decrease. Okay, now, whenever I was trying to make that example, City A, doesn't take a whole lot. I'm trying to be coy here, but City A is Danville, all right? Hypothetically, it's a city just like Danville, but that was our index crime offenses. 9 homicides, 69 rapes, 30 robberies, 213 ag assaults, batteries, burglaries, 272, 1194, 90, and 8. 1885 was the total incidence of crime, all right? Now, this is a completely exaggerated and made up city on City B. You have 90 criminal homicides, 10 times the other, almost twice as many rapes, 10 times the robberies, twice the ag assaults, ag batteries, more burglaries, thefts, 500, down from 1194. Motor vehicle thefts, the same, 90. And arson's a little higher at 30. So that's 1,710. So then if we compare the two, and we're using the same value and process of UCR.
The population is the same in the both.
Yeah, and
examples.
population is the same. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. So you're looking at, that's what your crime rate would, or your incidence of crime would be. And then you'd have to do your figuring to get your number per 100,000. So you'd do the math that's better than me. But still, statistically, higher crime rate city is A. And you tell me which one you'd rather be in. Okay.
So essentially, for us, because we have so many thefts, that's one of the things that's driving our crime rate. And thefts, Chief, I think you were telling me they very rarely affect a person, right?
Well, I mean,
yeah. they're very rarely personal, I should say. It's more business theft, right?
There's, that includes a lot of your retail theft. That includes it. It hurts all of us. There's always a victim directly and indirectly. But when you're comparing that and giving it the same value as a robbery, rape, or criminal homicide, when you're looking at overall crime rate, now they do break it down to violent crime, in different areas. But the overall crime rate is what we're talking about. All right. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear why we're breaking away from UCR and we're reporting NIBRS. Okay. Because this doesn't really tell me, and nor does it tell the community what actually is going on in your community. Because really, if you knock one out of there, we would not even be in, I'll just say things would be a lot different. Doesn't say that we're not spinning anything. We have challenges here in the city of Danville. Okay. But I think that we have to be very cautious when we're looking at data and wondering what, college word spurious relationships and whether or not we got correlations or causations and stuff like that. But I think that's sort of an indicator of where we're going. I am not satisfied with where we're at. I'll say it 100 times. But I am very encouraged in the direction we're going. And I'll tell you, I think the people that did the ride along, they can sort of attest to the amount of work that the individual officers doing, the efforts, because they're what do you want to say? They got a skin in the game. They're bought into this, and it's just a matter of we'll get it going, and we'll continue to improve. And I look forward to every month, every quarter that we can compare numbers to, and they're accurate. And I just hope that it continues going the same way. We're at 65 officers right now. We will be on Tuesday. We're budgeted to go to 70. We just got that grant, and we're in the process. A big problem we have is academy dates. If you didn't, we got 2 slots in the May date. I've got till September to get those next 5 ready to go. And if we lose anybody from retirement between that time, and we will get to that 70. And when we start some of those initiatives that we've talked about before, I'm really looking forward and I'm very encouraged for our future. And, hey, it's all about reducing the number of victims and improving the quality of life. We'll never lose track of that, regardless of numbers that other people present on us. That's all I got.
Thank you, Chief. Anybody got any questions for Chief Yates?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So you said we've been using NIBRS since,
We started using NIBRS, I believe, the last quarter of 2020.
okay.
Okay, or it's either the last quarter or first quarter of 2020. But I think if it was the first quarter, he would have told me that we started in 2020. So I think it was the last quarter of 2020 or last half of 2020. So we had to sort of try to use the same value and criteria when we were pulling the 2020 numbers to match, to marry NIBRS and UCR.
Okay. That's my only question. Thank you.
Anybody else got any questions for Chief? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Puts us to item number 15, which is a closed session. I don't see any paperwork here, so I don't think we've got one tonight. I'm sorry. Puts us to item number 16. Anybody have any items from information?
Is this when we can talk about our ARPA fund?
Sure.
Sure.
Question, in getting this information about our truck, how do we start? Because I do feel we need a truck other than some of these other things. So how do we go about doing this? I mean, just letting you know, I mean, and then when do we vote on it? And
Well, we have, as always, you can always let me know suggestions you have. You could even, you can share those with me anytime. I can bring a compilation of suggestions that everyone has to the next meeting. We are not voting on it because next time we're going to receive also more feedback from next meeting from the public. And then we'll be voting on it at the second meeting in May, which I believe is May 17th.
so would that come to us as I mean, how would we know what we're going to change if we are? I mean,
Well, basically, what I will do is take the recommendations that you all made, probably do some straw polls that evening to see where we are with adjustments, and then based on what you all tell me, then Ashlyn and I will put together a final proposal for a vote on the 17th.
okay. And I have talked to some of the other council members. One thing that has come to my attention, which I did not realize, the city tennis court is privately owned. I mean, we have the property, but it is a private access. Right. Correct.
Pardon?
It's a private club, correct?
It's open to anyone who's a member. Yes.
So you have to be a member in order to.
That is correct. However, it's our facility, so we have responsibility to maintain it. It serves as the host for all of our local high school tennis teams, and again, we also hosted the sectional meet for the young ladies this last time. Which, if we can get resurfaced, we might get state, and then that brings tourism dollars. The other thing is they do provide scholarships. They do not turn anyone away. So anyone who wishes to become a member at the Danville Tennis Center is able to. So there is not a denial of access, but you must be a member.
Do we know the cost that it would cost to redo the surface of the tennis courts?
I have all the numbers separately broken down. This was a compilation of all of them together. I could get that for you, but I mean, the thing is, if you fix one thing but not the others, then you still have problems. You know, if we fix the courts, but then we still have mold inside, well, then they can't really use the outside because they can't use the locker facilities. So it kind of goes all hand in hand. We could say we're only doing a certain thing. But then if we do that, it will still limit use of the facility.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question regarding that. Danville, the city of Danville owns the building and the property,
That's correct.
but there is a membership to be there. Can that be changed?
We can't change it. The Danville Tennis Center would have to change it, but they have we have a lease agreement with them. I would have to verify when it expires, but it's just like the stadium. We own the stadium, but the Danville Dans lease that from us, and then they charge us to attend games, et cetera, or to use. They charge for you to go there. They charge for you to use it, whereas a difference is the high schools are not charged to use the tennis center.
Okay, but at the ballpark, that's open to the public. Am I correct?
It is open to the public, but you have to pay a fee.
Well, that's okay. We have to pay, but it's not private. I mean, to me, Danville Tennis Club is a private entity, even though the city owns the building. So that's my concern. That's what I want to bring out, that even though the city owns the building and the property, with that and then taxpayers' money to take care of it, it should be open to the public. That's why my concern is, can we change that where it cannot be a membership fee? And if there's a fee for the public to go in, that's an entirely different story. So maybe we need to look at that.
So Alderman Brown, if I understand correctly, you're saying like a recommendation to the tennis center that they would charge, they could do like
No,
a
that's
daily.
not what I'm saying. That's
Yeah,
not what
if I could finish.
Mhm.
I understood you to say like a daily admission fee, that the public could go there, but then they would pay a fee if they go to the stadium.
Similar to that, yeah, but it would be open to the public.
Right.
And then if there's a fee, like when there's a ball game and you have to pay $2, $5, $10 or whatever. But to have that where you have to be a member to participate there. And I understand that because of the state tournaments there with the schools and whatever, and it brings in, as you discussed last week, that brings in some revenue. That's fine. But I just would like for us to just look at that as a council.
We don't set the rates, they do, but we could ask them if they would be willing to change their lease to include that. Absolutely.
But, okay, now their lease, they pay, we have information on that, how much lease they pay or rent they pay, or?
I would have to look at it. I'll be honest, I haven't looked. I've only looked at it a couple of years ago. I haven't looked at it recently. I want to say they only pay a small fee a year, just like the stadium does. It's minuscule.
Okay, yeah, but I whatever information, I'll probably talk to you again about it. I just have a concern that it can be only for members only, but yet the city is taking care of the property, and it's still a little different than with the park, the ballpark. But you answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Engineer, did you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to add a couple other examples. I think Garfield Pool is an example of how it's a public facility. You have an entry fee, but you can be a member or a daily pass. The golf course, is another one that's very similar. So I think you're on the right track. That makes sense what she's asking about. So
yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I understand. Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good suggestion.
Well, Mayor, I'm going to ask, the $600,000 we're given to the place that's going to go on the old Saney Hospital.
SIHF.
The 500,000.
Yes. Is it 500?
500.
Okay. Is that amount of money is because the county gave some and we were in line with that and we agreed to that?
we haven't agreed to anything without you all, but they have requested
They have requested.
support, and the county intends to match that as well. They asked 500,000. I believe the total project cost, I want to say, is 3 or 4 million, and they've requested $500,000 each from the city and the county.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. In looking at it, the thing is, we still have the same needs no matter how we prioritize them. We're still, whether we buy a truck or we get bridges, or whether we give money to the tennis center or we, give money to the youth serving programs, we have the same expenses one way or another. It's just a matter of how we prioritize them. We're going to have to pay for them all eventually, so we could, for example, it'd likely be my recommendation that the money that we need for the ladder truck be taken from bridges. I think that there are some bridge programs where we could apply for grants, or that we could budget for that in future years. But we're still going to have to maintain and fix the bridges one way or another, so all the money has to come from somewhere at some point.
Well, and I would only state that, the information we're given tonight, they're both on their last legs, and it is a public necessity and safety feature.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I requested, when we first found out we got the money, that I requested too. So.
Yes, sir.
And I also did think about the bridge preservation and maintenance, taking it from that because of maybe grants or funds that we can take, I've already talked to Sam about that. So that's another fund I thought we could take it away from.
Mhm.
There's always, I don't support this at all. There's always the option that we could bond, equipment, whether it be fire equipment or for bridges or whatever it would be. But we've worked really hard and paid off a lot of our debt, some of it early, which saved the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I personally wouldn't advocate that. I think we're very close to having a strong assessment of our roads, and hopefully by the end of this year, a 5-year capital plan, so that we could be strategic with these expenses.
Well, I have another question as far
Yes,
as, we have Carl coming into town. How long would it even, if we ordered a truck, how long would it take to even get one, a ladder truck?
I was going to say, Chief was telling me a year to a year and a half likely.
So we have that. By that time, we'll have the casino. By that time, we'll have FedEx.
Right.
So we've got all these new buildings that, and people that will be coming into the city working, not just the population, but people
Right.
coming into the city. So to me, this is a safety thing that I think we should really shift the money to, my opinion.
Does anyone else have any recommendations or suggestions about if we were to instead focus on a ladder truck, where you would suggest we take that money from, other than bridges? Are there any other suggestions or proposals?
Well, I'm going to
Okay.
say, look at the facility that's going to go in at St. Elizabeth Hospital ground. Some of that money. I mean, I really hate to see. I know we were in trouble a couple of years ago, and we didn't have the trucks that we actually needed. And if we had a major fire that had been like the Wolfers, we'd have been in trouble. So.
Yep.
Agreed. There also is one item that I forgot to bring you, and I can't believe this. One of the purposes is to replace lost revenue. And two of the areas that were hit the hardest were our hotel motel tax, and then also a little bit our liquor tax. So both the arena and the civic center lost a substantial amount of money. I believe likely, a couple hundred, around $200,000 total. Ashlyn and I are looking into that, and we also would recommend that we look at, reimbursing them for their losses during the pandemic as well. That's one of the ways that this can be used. The arena brings in hosts and then brings in a lot of events and entertainment for our people, but it also brings a lot of people into our community, as well as the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I think the The Visitors Bureau is going to be even more busy with all the new things that we have coming and better advertising it. So I want to make sure we support them and give them what they need to help us be successful as well. I will likely bring to you an update based on some of the discussion we had last time and here tonight, and then any additional feedback that I receive to the next council meeting for you all to look at, for the community to look at one more time. And then, of course, we can continue to make changes from there as well.
Would that be taking away from these funds that we've already are here?
It would.
Okay.
I mean, because we only have 24.7.
Right,
so-
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, right, right.
And I think if you may go to the state, because I don't know that everything's been changing and everything's been signed in law and things like that. I believe they had some money that they were talking about. They were going to distribute a couple weeks ago. They've talked about it for hotels and motels and stuff like that. So
They are. Some of our local places have received some money in support of that, the hotels and motels themselves, but that's not been taxed. So that,
I understand. I understand. And of course, with saying that, your hotel motel, you're going to have Harrison Park as well, because they get part of that money as well. So they're going to be down too.
I that's certainly something I forgot to mention that, but we also did give them, I believe, $80,000 already from the general fund. So I think we would probably compare their revenue versus normal revenue. And then, if it's more than $80,000, maybe giving them the difference. If it's less than $80,000, I would say the general fund already did its part to.
Okay. Well, I understand that, because I know for years we bumped them alone or whatever, and we always made it back.
That's
So
right.
I understand that. Okay.
Speaking of that, if you haven't had a chance to go down, the renovations at the Harrison Park are coming along really well. I really appreciate Steve and Carl and their team. They've done a phenomenal job out there. It's looking great. It's not quite done. When it's done, I think it's going to look so different. We probably need to have a ribbon cutting. So
And you can see the Eagles.
that's true.
Yeah.
The Eagles have returned to the nest and are feeding and interacting with the eaglets like normal. So
I don't think the one made it.
no, one didn't, but the other two that were returned are doing great. Well, there was a picture of the parents bringing them a whole squirrel to eat the other day. I knew they ate fish, but I didn't know that they. Yeah, I forgot about the small ground mammals. So
Watch your little dogs in the backyard, just like a hawk.
I can
Engineer-
answer, sorry.
Go ahead. Ashley.
I can answer a few small questions about the Danville Tennis Center lease. It was signed for a term of 25 years upon the date of signature, and it was uploaded to the shared drive May 15th. So I'm thinking the beginning of May 2013. There's also number 5 in the agreement says lessee agrees to allow non-members of the Danville Tennis Club use of the facility up to 6 times annually upon payment of the applicable guest fee and regular court usage fee. So if that should be something that's being offered. Maybe the fee's not on the website or something, but they should be allowing, even if you're not a member, use up to 6 times a year. So
I was just going to add to that. I hopped on their website and my daughter takes lessons there. I do recall we were not a member, and you just pay a slightly higher fee to do the classes and stuff like that. You can schedule ahead. It appears that members get, if you're trying to reserve courts and they're booked, members get priority, I think, or non-members have to reserve further in advance type thing. But in general, I've not seen it. It appears that they let anybody in there. So, and that's on their website and advertised.
I'll clarify that and make sure I bring that update for y'all.
Well, I know that to be true. I'm not a member, and I've played there before. So by paying an extra fee.
Yeah. I just want to update you guys on the meeting on Friday. We're having a neighborhood association meeting right here. And I'm really just excited to bring everybody together. I think that the leaders of the neighborhood associations that we do have, there's just a handful of them right now, but many are attending. And the idea and the hope for the meeting is that we come away with an understanding of how the city can use our resources to build neighborhood associations. So we're going to do some brainstorming. We're going to present some resources to the neighborhood association leaders that we have and in ways that we can help them currently. And so I want to remind you that you're all invited to attend. Oh, and we're going to have lunch, Jocko's. So that'll be nice too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's at 11:30.
Yeah, we're going to eat lunch at 11:30 and then the meeting will begin at noon.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll eat in here and then we'll meet in here. Yeah. And also I didn't speak to this during Agnell's time with you guys, but I'm really excited about the Text My Gov app. That's something that will fall to me. Agnell's division will pay for it, will be in his budget, but I'll be trying to implement that. And so it's a 2-year contract to start. And I think that many of our citizens do use website and social media, but many do not. And so I think this is a really great way to reach a little further with our announcements and road closures and event information. And then also they can text us and opt in to receiving our notifications, but then also like we can create an automated system where they could text like pothole, and then we would immediately respond with the reported app, they could click it immediately, so it can help people get answers even when we're closed, which I think is really nice too. So looking forward to that.
All right, thank you. Any more items of information from anybody? If not, puts us to item number 17, which is adjournment. I think we fulfilled everything we had in front of us this evening. I'll accept a motion and a second to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.
Why short?
And I saw that they didn't even have our poverty rate right. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You can literally click on the census.
Yeah, I know the feeling.